Geographic separation over thousands of years resulted in 90% of the species found in Australia being endemic to this vast land. And for the locals, living here means living amongst some of the world's most dangerous animals. Some of these animals can kill instantly, others leave lasting injuries, and some can just inflict a nasty bite. In all, 72 animals can cause us damage. But which one tops the list of most dangerous? Menacing and feared by many, our first animal to hit the spotlight won't hesitate to bite if you really annoy it.
I had it by the tail and it arced around and grabbed me on the back of the leg. I didn't let go of the shark and it didn't let go of me, so it was what we call a dead dog. Basically, it hung on because it was totally stressed out and it was frightened, and it just hung on to the back of my leg. So I actually swam back to the boat I put my hand in the gill of the shark so it wouldn't move its head and join all the dots and take the back of my leg off. So I swam back to the research boat with the shark on my leg and got onto the duckboard, and we actually had to get a screwdriver in to open the jaw to get it off my leg. And since it was there, I decided to put a radio transmitter inside it.
Richard Fitzpatrick is a renowned marine biologist who specializes in shark research. For him, this was just another day in the office.
It swam away with 4 stitches with a radio transmitter in it, and then I went and stitched myself up. So I got many more stitches than the shark. But it was interesting when getting bitten in that circumstance and what we call dead dog, it wasn't the teeth, the cutting that hurt, it was the bite pressure. It was enormous. It was like having your leg inside a vice. There's a lot of cuts and teeth marks there, but the bruising was extensive because it was clamped onto my leg for probably about 10 minutes before we got it off. I was really surprised by the bite force and how much pain was from just the sheer pressure.
Reef sharks is a collective name given to 4 species of sharks that live in the tropical waters of Australia.
So you got white tips, grey reefs, black tips and silver tips. And essentially they're out there doing their thing all the time, looking for prey and making baby sharks. The biggest of the reef sharks is the silver tip, and they can get almost 3 meters long. And that's a big, impressive shark, particularly when they come in on a feeding event.
The most common are the gray reefs and the white tips. They grow to about 1.6 meters long and occur in quite large numbers. The smallest are the black tips at under 1.5 meters. Reef sharks are viviparous, meaning they give birth to live young which develop inside the body. Depending on the type of shark, they can have a litter of up to about 10 pups, although less is more common.
The different species of reef sharks are using the different parts of the reef in different ways. And this is actually the research we're doing at the moment.
Richard and his team are tracking the sharks by putting data loggers inside the animals, but first they have to catch them. Richard has developed a unique lasso system to grab the sharks, which once around their tail, causes the shark to become quite placid. This shark rodeo lessens the trauma to the shark and makes research considerably easier.
So the grey reef sharks are working the reef edges, and they're really most active for hunting at dawn and dusk. So when we're transitioning from nocturnal to diurnal animals, they're zipping around hunting. The white-tip reef shark is a specialist nocturnal feeder. It'll spend the whole day sitting on the seafloor, just sitting there pumping water in through its gills. But as soon as the sun sets, their behaviour changes. It's really like a Jekyll and Hyde switch. And they're zipping around the reef, sticking their head into every hole, again looking for a sleeping fish. They'll go into a cave, they'll go in amongst the coral. They can fold their dorsal fins down, they can walk on their pectoral fins if they need to, trying to find a sleeping fish. Once they find it, they'll grab it and just start thrashing around. And I've seen white-tip reef sharks destroy heaps of coral, trying to get a fish out of the middle of it. Then the bigger silver tips, they live out off the edge of the reef, out in the deeper water, so they're really feeding on more pelagic type fish, scooting up and down the reef. And then the little black tips, they love to live on the reef top, in the very shallow waters, and then moving around there.
Reef sharks are generally not interested in what humans are up to. If people have been bitten by these sharks, it's generally when they've been out spearfishing. The spearos aren't hunting the reef sharks, but as soon as they fire the gun and there's a struggling fish in the water, the reef sharks will be straight in for the kill.
There's been quite a few numerous bites on arms and legs from reef sharks. We've only had a few fatalities as a result, but generally, just a bite and off they go.
The sharks get quite frantic when there's blood and food in the water. Dozens of them come together, zooming around looking for an easy meal. The problem for the spearos occur when they bring the struggling fish just a little too close, and in amongst the frenzy of blood in the water, the sharks have ended up biting them.
One of the fatalities we had up here on the Great Barrier Reef a couple of years ago was from a reef shark that wasn't even particularly large, and unfortunately it came up between the guy's legs when he was trying to fend it off, and it bit him on the inside of the thigh and actually took out the femoral artery. So it wasn't even a large shark, and just bit down, released, and caused the injury.
These sharks usually only attack when you're competing with them for food, or in Richard's case, they may not have liked being grabbed. Both situations where the shark is just responding to what's going on in their environment, but they also have to keep an eye out for what's watching them.
Predators on the reef sharks are other sharks, particularly bigger ones like bull sharks and tiger sharks. And we've actually even seen big gropers eat sharks as well. We had some of our data loggers in white-tip sharks, and one day we saw some white-tip sharks sticking their head into the reef. They were feeding on a fish, and this big groper came up, looked at the fish that they were feeding inside the hole, looked at the shark, and then ate the shark. So we ended up tracking the groper. So the big gropers will eat small sharks.
In the coral sea reefs adjacent to the Great Barrier Reef, the gray reefs and the white tips are particularly abundant. And it's these sharks that are the big draw card for divers and tourists.
In the Coral Sea, there's been very little shark fishing. So you can hop in the water, no food at all, sit down on the edge of the reef and have 20 or 30 sharks swimming around you. And it's like this beautiful underwater grey ballet. You're just sitting down there watching these animals just cruising around. They don't care that you're there, and they're just doing their thing, and it's just beautiful to watch.
Animals are competitive by nature. They need to be to survive. So in keeping with the action, we're going to rank them according to just how dangerous they can be. We'll scrutinize each one, highlighting how they can affect your life, quite literally, allowing you to decide if you're game enough to get as close as some of our experts. Beautiful to watch, if you dare, but from a very safe distance for many, on TV for most. The reef shark is one of the friendlier sharks, but it's still a wild animal and caution is paramount. This creature is going to cruise in at number 1, happy to just wait to see what happens. But hoping to knock it off its perch is a very big bird. The northeastern tropical rainforest of Queensland, Australia is beautiful. It has spectacular scenery with magnificent mountain ranges, lush vegetation, and crystal clean rivers. It's a great place to visit, but if you do, beware, for lurking amongst the shadows is a dangerous giant that can kill you with one powerful blow. And if you make the mistake of entering this killer's territory, it will stalk you and attack when you least expect it, with deadly results.
In the animal world, when we invade the home, particularly if there's babies around, that's when we'll get pushed away, and violently.
The lush rainforest is the home of the largest native land animal in Australia, the southern cassowary. And this flightless bird is one of the world's largest. Standing up to 2 meters tall and weighing in at roughly 60 to 80 kilograms, it is not a bird to mess with. The cassowary is considered to be aggressive, and with over 150 recorded attacks on humans, it's easy to appreciate that this is one seriously dangerous animal. Known as the most deadly bird in the world, it's definitely worthy of making our list of 72.
The cassowary is something that is very capable of killing man. The cassowary doesn't just kick, it jumps up and it will just cut you open. Again, that is when we invade its territory.
David Thorne from the Caversham Wildlife Park in Western Australia has worked with the southern cassowary for years. He's very fond of them, but ever mindful of safety when he enters the enclosure with his birds, and warns they're still very much a wild animal.
Cassowaries in captivity, like anything else, are hand-reared. They probably do behave a little bit differently, but it would be more in the way that they're not afraid, so they could be more mischievous.
The cassowary is the dominant animal in the Australian tropical rainforest, and that's not surprising as they are superb athletes. This enormous bird can reach speeds of 50 kilometers per hour, jump 1.5 meters high, and swim rivers or seas with ease. So you won't escape the cassowary if they're hunting you, and if you decide to stop and fight, you might want to think twice about that too, as this bird has some serious weaponry.
He can outrun me. He will chase you through the rainforest. He can kick you and he will peck you and also use his horn on his head to bang into you. As you can see, his feet are quite large. He has 3 toes and they all have very sharp claws on them. And that's what they use to kick people.
These 3 sharp claws are the bird's primary defense, and the middle toe is shaped like a 125mm dagger. This can open you up like a tin can. Combine these claws with powerful legs, and you have a lethal weapon.
It's very painful and I don't recommend it for anybody to try it out. He kicked me in the head when I'd bent over and I was accidentally too close to the fence and I was bleeding from where all the nails went into my head. Yeah, it's not nice. It felt like someone had hit me in the head with a brick when he kicked me. It was so painful. It wasn't something that I like to experience again.
Based at the Malcolm Douglas Wilderness Wildlife Park in the north of Western Australia, Donna Tanyan may have had a rough start when meeting her flightless workmates, but working with these animals is a job she loves and considers this cassowary to be one of her favorites.
But he doesn't like me back.
The cassowary is a very territorial animal and it patrols an area around 7 square kilometers. So venture into their turf and you will know about it very quickly. They will stalk you like a prehistoric raptor from Jurassic Park. If you turn and run, that is when they'll strike. They're a smart hunter. They will outflank you when you aren't watching and hit you like a freight train.
So this cassowary can jump up to about my chest height, and what he would do would be stabbing me with his claws, and he'd stab them into my chest and rip down as he goes to land on the ground. It'd be very painful and I wouldn't like to experience it.
The diet of the southern cassowary is mainly made up of forest fruits and berries. But being an omnivore, they will eat most things they find, foraging for food in the forest, including small animals. But they also will eat other foods when in captivity, like stone fruit and even kiwi fruit.
So living in the rainforest, I have quite a large variety of food. Kiwi fruit's not natural, but he absolutely loves it. It's his favourite.
But if you think you can win over a cassowary with treats, think twice. They will never be your friend. In fact, feeding this oversized bird will only make them more fearless and aggressive. So be careful.
When you walk past his fence and when I go to feed him, he jumps up and attacks the fence. He kicks the fence, he hisses at me, he pecks me through the fence. He's very aggressive and I see him every day and I still have not made a connection with him. Even when he's sick, he still doesn't like you.
The name cassowary comes from a Papuan name meaning horned head, referring to the helmet of tough skin borne on the crown of the head. The color of the head and neck can change depending on the mood of the cassowary.
There's a couple of theories to the crown. They're still not sure on what it is used for. When they start calling to each other, because they live solitary lives, they need to amplify their call to meet each other and come across for mating. So they use the horn to help amplify the noise. It's actually hollow. And they also believe that they use it to run through the rainforest and bang into things and to attack people with.
In the cassowary world, the female is, well, queen. They are larger, more aggressive, and leave the male to do the entire child rearing.
More than likely, most of the attacks will happen when there's babies about, so they're protecting that area, but people haven't seen it. Just people going into their homes.
The cassowary is an endangered species in Australia. There are less cassowaries than pandas in China, and the habitat of the bird has been reduced by 80%. Thus, the loss of habitat puts the bird on a collision course with humans. So you can't blame them for being a little grumpy. The southern cassowary may be maligned as a killer, but the fatalities are low. The reef shark is still looking good in the top spot, dominating this aggressive bird in second. But from one of the biggest that can't fly to one of the smallest that can, our next animal is a stealth fighter always on the hunt for a victim. Aggravating, irritating, and potentially deadly. No other insect is quite as annoying as the buzzing barbecue killer, the mosquito. But these insects are also the disease-spreading, blood-sucking vampires of the animal kingdom. Their microscopic bite causes red, itchy bumps that can last for days or weeks. But beyond the nuisance factor, these little bloodsuckers wreak havoc the world over. Aside from the annoyingly itchy bite side, it's the viruses they carry that are really dangerous. Malaria is their best-known deadly disease, but there's so many more.
Australia's in the hot seat when it comes to mosquito-borne diseases. It seems like every year I'm here, there's something new coming on, some new invading disease, some new invading mosquito.
A mosquito bite turned Ian Chater's life upside down. He's a survivor of a rare but deadly mosquito-borne disease, Murray Valley encephalitis. This virus can cause brain tissue to swell, swelling that may cause paralysis, coma, or even death.
Like the worst hangover you've ever had times 10, and it doesn't go away.
Ian had his dream job, living and working in the Australian outback. But one work trip into the desert marked the beginning of hell.
In May 2011, I was asked to drive out to Fitzroy Crossing, which is about 4 or 5 hours east of Broome. On the way out there, my car broke down.
The 2011 wet season was particularly bad, with vast flooding across Queensland and northern Australia. When Ian set out for Fitzroy Crossing, the clouds had cleared and warm, stagnant water was everywhere, the perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes. Ian ended up spending 3 hours stranded on the side of the road, 3 hours next to a mosquito-infested swamp, 3 hours that changed his life forever.
My car broke down at about 4:35 p.m. I didn't get picked up till about 8, and in that time I got probably the worst amount of mosquito bites I've ever had in my life. I got absolutely chewed. The mosquitoes were biting me through my clothes. I'd been given a hiking shirt, like one that I was wearing driving out there, supposedly insect proof, but I do remember rolling up my sleeve at one point, to spray more of this spray on. There was like rivulets of blood where I've been bitten that much.
Ian doesn't know how many mosquitoes attacked him, but by the time he was rescued, his body was covered in more than 50 puncture wounds.
I remember thinking this isn't good because I got savaged. I couldn't escape them, that was a scary thing.
There are roughly 300 species of mosquito in Australia, but not all are dangerous to humans. They range from 4 to 6 millimeters in size, with 6 legs and a pair of wings. The head is armed with a long proboscis to pierce skin. Males are sweet nectar-loving types and only live for about a week. It's the females that feed on animal blood. Their lifespan is a month, plenty of time to spread disease. A female mosquito can suck 2 to 3 times its weight in blood. Being a mosquito meal is no fun, but they're just getting the nutrients they need to develop and lay eggs.
When it comes to feeding on blood, it varies with the species. Aedes aegypti, the dengue mosquito, feeds almost exclusively on humans. There's a mosquito called the brown house mosquito that feeds almost exclusively on birds. And you get a lot of our nuisance mosquitoes here feed on things like wallabies and kangaroos and possums, but if you're out there in the bush, they'll feed on you.
Most people don't know the danger of mosquitoes, swatting them away without a thought, or even unaware they're being attacked, until it's too late. For Ian, feeling agitated and grumpy was the first sign that something was wrong. Then overnight, the virus hit with full force.
I woke up the next morning, hallucinating this woman above my head, diarrhea in my sleeping bag, crying. I was screaming at one point, and there's things I don't remember. I was told things I tried to get up and walk and fell on my face, and pretty out there stuff, but I don't remember it, thank God.
Doctors suspected a mosquito-borne virus. They took Ian's blood, and when the results came back, the news they delivered was devastating.
He said, "You have a potentially fatal virus. You should call your family. There's nothing we can do, but I think you'll be okay." So I was no Ross River, no Barmah Forest, no dengue, no Kunjun, which is another one, but my Murray Valley level was right up, and they just said, "You've got Murray Valley encephalitis."
If you get Murray Valley encephalitis, or MVE, it's likely your temperature will soar, your head will pound, you'll become confused and feel so tired you can barely move. In the worst cases, the virus causes fits and seizures.
People can't believe that something as small as a mosquito, someone like me who was surfing all the time and running around the desert, basically spent a year of my life in and out of bed.
The virus lives in water birds and is carried by mosquitoes into humans. Many victims end up in hospital, but there's no cure and treatment is limited.
Murray Valley encephalitis seems to be restricted for the most part to the tropics, like the Kimberley, Northern Territory. Those are the areas where you never see large numbers of cases. You might only have a couple, 2 or 3 human cases a year, but because the outcome is so devastating, death, or you could be in a coma for the rest of your life.
Another nasty disease carried by mosquitoes is Ross River virus, and it's much more common. Found all over Australia, there are more than 5,000 cases each year.
Almost everyone in Australia probably knows someone who's had Ross River. I've had it and didn't know I had it. There are a lot of mosquitoes who carry Ross River, and it's extremely common, particularly in the summer. It tends to get you sort of an arthritis thing, where you aches and pains, you feel tired, and as I say, you have a hard time opening a stubby.
Dengue fever doesn't last that long, but it usually hits harder.
Here in the Cairns area in North Queensland, we've got what we call the dengue mosquito. So every year, during particularly the wet season, we seem to get dengue outbreaks up here. And dengue can make you quite ill. Only rarely does it kill you, but it can make you quite ill.
The dengue mosquito loves humans and loves to make a home out of your home. Scott Ritchie calls them the cockroaches of mosquitoes because they usually live in houses, and just one mosquito can cause a dengue outbreak.
They usually have this blinding headache, a lot of vomiting. Sometimes they vomit so much they have to go to the hospital because they can't stop, and they get dehydrated. And they usually get a very bright rash. Sometimes they lose their hair. And a real severe case, they can have hemorrhaging and go into shock. So it's not a fun disease.
And don't be fooled, this tiny insect is not a stupid animal. The dengue mosquito has an uncanny ability to avoid being caught in the act.
The female Aedes aegypti is, if you're going to feed on humans, the one thing you've got to avoid is the slap. They bite you down by the ankles, which is about as far away as you can be from, a guy giving a swat. So that gives them that extra millisecond to get away. And they tend to be extremely skittish. So as soon as you feel an aegypti and try to move, they're off. And so what you end up with is you'll get one female Aedes aegypti that might end up being flushed away from several people it was trying to feed on. And in a sense, bite several people. In one house, you might get 4 or 5 people come down with dengue, and it was from, one single mosquito.
Dengue feels like the worst flu you've ever had. It used to be called breakbone fever because of the pain that racks your body. Ian didn't die from his brush with mosquitoes, but it took him more than a year to recover from MVE.
I couldn't get up off the couch. Sometimes I had to crawl to do things. Like, it was really bad. I had weird rashes would appear. About 2 months after I first got diagnosed with it, this gland in my neck swelled up so much, and I've never had it before or since. I couldn't swallow properly. It was like a golf ball. It felt terrible. I've described it to friends. It's like year zero. Like, I'd wake up and I wouldn't know where I wouldn't know who I was.
Mosquitoes don't care who they target. They carry disease by accident. Their blood-sucking ways are all focused on one thing: feeding the next generation.
People say, why? Why do we have mosquitoes? Why did God create mosquitoes? This sort of stuff. And I think the main purpose of mosquitoes is just to pass their genome on, carry on the tradition of the family, so to speak.
A tradition that Ian is more than happy to squash.
They're the only animal I'm quite happy to kill. I'll let spiders out of the house, but if I see a mosquito, I'm pretty happy to finish it off, I don't like them.
Dangerous and deadly, it's a war between human and mosquito. The mosquito usually wins the day, and this will see it fly straight to number 1. Down goes the reef shark, down goes the southern cassowary, and into the arena slides a likely contender punching high above its weight.
Any snake can be considered dangerous, but this guy's a big snake.
I've picked up olives off the road that'll try and rip your arm off every time.
The iridescent olive sheen and creamy white underbelly make this one gorgeous looking snake. But the sheer size of this monster will make your skin crawl. The powerful olive python is more than capable of taking down a small wallaby, another snake of equal size, even a freshwater crocodile.
In the wild, they probably only eat once every 6 months. It could take a possum or a small wallaby, and that would keep it going for 6 months, not a problem.
Found throughout the top end of Australia, the olive python is non-venomous, yet a formidable predator. Growing to 4 meters in length and weighing as much as a small child, this is one of Australia's largest species of python. Its main form of predation and defense comes in the disguise of an extremely nasty bite and a constrictive personality. This trait doesn't stop Chris Baker of the Malcolm Douglas Crocodile Park in Broome, Western Australia, handling this reptile on a daily basis.
When they do bite and when they actually devour their prey, they can basically dislocate the jaw, so that mouth opens up quite wide and becomes quite a lot bigger than what it actually looks. And inside the mouth there's a lot of very small backwards facing teeth to help drag his prey into his mouth and down his throat.
The bite of an olive python can be long-lasting, with its teeth known to break off from the jaw, embedding into its victim. And this is when things get messy.
That's where the infection sets in, and you just get these little lumps months later that pop up as a little pustule, and you squeeze it out and the tooth will come out.
In his line of work, Dion Wedd, curator of zoology at the Northern Territory Wildlife Park, has come into contact with the tearing bite of an olive python on more than one occasion.
They do have a really strong, really powerful bite. We were collecting snakes at the time, and we found a really, really beautiful frosty green snake. The guy I was with, he pulled it out of this rock crevice and he handed it to me, and I said, look, no, give me the head. Don't just hand me the snake, give me the head. And he's going, no, it's all right. And he just passed it to me, and this olive just grabbed me on the forearm here, and that particular snake was probably 3.5 metres. It was a big snake. We're a long way from anywhere, and this thing, bit hard, and we managed to extract it off my arm, and I reckon I bled for probably 3 hours after that. Because it's such a lacerating and tearing bite, it really bleeds a lot. It's not just a light prick and a little bit of blood, it's a lot of blood. The danger is the infection and the severe bleeding that results.
Every couple of months, the eyes of the olive python become cloudy and its ordinarily opalescent sheen begins to dull. These are key indicators that this relatively slow-growing snake is about to shed its skin. A growing python cannot be contained within a sheath of dead scales.
Their skin is actually basically a dead sheath over their whole body, and as they grow, that sheath, because it's not alive, it doesn't grow with the body, so they've got to shed that outer layer. They just start on their nose and they slowly pull it back, and they'll find something rough and then just rub on it until that skin just peels right off.
By no means does being non-venomous put this snake at a disadvantage. Besides its powerful, lacerating bite, the olive python is blessed with an additional cunning sense, making it a far better predator than its toxic fanged relatives. Hunting under the cover of darkness, the olive python uses thermal imaging in detecting the heat signature of small mammals. 2 labial pits located on either side of the head allow the python to sense and track prey from a distance of 25 feet, like a guided missile honing in on its warm-blooded target.
The way these snakes predate on things is they physically bite and hang on and then throw coils around the animal and constrict it. But when they bite and they want to hang on, they don't want to let go. But that initial bite has got to be strong enough and hard enough to hold that animal so they can put the coils around them.
With each painful exhalation, the python tightens its crushing grip again and again until the lungs of its prey can no longer take in oxygen. It's like drowning on dry land.
He'd have a truckload of strength, and if he actually did start to constrict, it'd be really hard to get off.
Although unlikely to kill a human, snake handlers agree this is one deadly grip best avoided. Many choose to have an olive python as a pet. Probably way more choose to never go near one. Either way, this is a mighty snake. But in our list, it's going to slip in at 4th, leaving our top 3 beasts in the same spots. However, seeking the limelight next is a saltwater celebrity whose striking appearance has lured more than its fair share of unlucky admirers. They're renowned for their innate beauty, flowing pectoral fins, and intriguing candy cane markings. But appearances can be deceiving. Look but don't touch, for even the slightest contact can result in potent venom sprouting from its 18 needle-like spines.
All you need to do is to allow those spines to nick the surface of your skin, and that's enough to get venom impregnated into the system. From then on in, you're in trouble.
Night stalkers, these natural-born stingers, are found in warmer waters hiding away in coral reefs and rocky crevices. Skilled hunters and cannibals who eat their own kind. Lionfish have the ability to shift their center of gravity to better attack their prey, all the while blowing jets of water to disorient their target. Cunning and stealthful, these slow yet deadly creatures rely on camouflage and lightning-fast reflexes.
So the venom that you see in lionfish is designed to produce pain. It's there to convince things that you shouldn't eat them. So when people get envenomed or stung with these things, if you put your hand on it, or you sit on them, or you stand on them, or brush up against them, those long spines go into your body. You basically get venom pumped down along the spines, and it's designed to produce pain. So again, it's one of these instantaneous pains that brings tears to your eyes.
There are as many as 10 different species of lionfish or pterois. Their poisonous spines mean they are among the scorpion fish family, along with the cobbler and the deadly stonefish. Also known as turkeyfish or dragonfish, these remarkable creatures are treasured for their striking appearance, a guise also used as camouflage in pursuit of prey. Not surprisingly, these tropical terrors have few identified predators. And when it's feeding time, expect something spectacular as they move in for the kill.
They've got these big fins at the front end which they use to corral up the prey. So if they're looking for a little tiny fish, and I'll see it, they'll use these big fins at the front of them to actually push the animal into a corner and then swallow them whole.
In Australia, the lionfish is a natural wonder to be admired from afar. However, in the Caribbean and Western Atlantic, the non-indigenous species is a pest, now at near-plague proportions. What started out as a love affair by aquarium owners with these saltwater celebrities has resulted in an unprecedented alien invasion.
They will eat anything in the tank that will fit down their throat. So after a while, people went, well, I don't want this animal anymore. They released them. They then got into the ecosystem over there. There's very few animals that can handle them from a point of view of eating them because of the venom. And before you knew where they are, or where they were, there are hundreds of these animals. And some of the areas in certain dive sites in the US, you can't swim there anymore because there are so many of these animals.
Since lionfish are native to Australia, they have their own predators, so the numbers are kept to a manageable size in our reef systems.
But you remove the animal from where there are predators, you put it into a new animal or a new area where there aren't predators, that's when the animal takes off.
Taking off in plague proportions, our much-admired Australian predator has certainly made its mark in the Gulf of Mexico, wreaking havoc amongst ocean-based workers.
Places alone and a lot of the oil rigs and things of that nature, you see a lot of divers get stung when they go down. They take their bag of tools and things down, they put the tools on the bottom, and the lionfish come out and hide in the bags and things where they're there. Divers then put their hands in to grab a tool, put their hand up against the spine and get stung in the hand.
While deaths from these ambush predators are rare, coming into contact with them can result in life-threatening injuries. Neurotoxic venom emitted from two parallel grooves in their spine can leave victims partially paralyzed, unable to breathe, suffering convulsions, and in severe pain. More frightening still is that it can all play out in the darkness and silence well below the ocean's surface.
If deaths occur, it's usually at depth, so it's divers that have been 10, 15, 20 metres down, they've brushed up against one of these things, they've spat out their dive gear, sucked in some water, and basically drowned.
If you're unfortunate enough to be stung by a lionfish, the best pain relief is hot water, as hot as you can take it. Immerse the affected part of your body in steaming water or head for the shower. The good news is that you're unlikely to die, but you might wish you had, as the pain is intense. Mystery abounds as to how an overabundance of these spiny invaders will affect native fish populations and commercial fishing industries in the future. With a single female able to release 30,000 eggs per spawn every 4 days, it seems the lionfish will continue to live up to its title of king of the underwater jungle for some time yet. There is still so much to be learned about the lionfish, but what we do know is there is a small upset on the danger scale. The flamboyant lionfish is catching the tide into third, pushing the olive python way down to fifth, and the southern cassowary into fourth. The top two are holding tight to their spots, the ever-present and threatening mosquito in at 1 and the reef shark at 2. Up next, however, is a player who's going to take you by surprise. An early morning walk in the bush could be your introduction to a devastating period of partial paralysis, dropping blood pressure, and eventual collapse. Hopefully someone is nearby. Hopefully they've called for an ambulance.
They can even go into anaphylactic shock, where the blood pressure drops, they can collapse, and they can even die.
This is one incredibly small animal, but the consequences can be enormous.
In Australia, there's about 80 different species of ticks, but there's one particular species that causes problems to humans, but also our pets. That's the paralysis tick.
The paralysis tick has no eyes, so it's not an active hunter. It's more of an opportunistic creature. They're just not capable of being that aggressive. In fact, they tend to sit around waiting for someone to pass by and actually make contact with them.
If something big and hairy walks past while the tick is waiting, then they'll latch on and then climb onto the host. Now, once they're on you, they can actually walk over the body for some time, for even a couple of hours. And they can walk up the clothing, and if they can't find a ready access to the skin, then they'll keep walking and eventually settle onto their head. And so if they're on their head, people think they're falling out of the trees. Well, no. Basically, they've got on low and just walked up.
Paralysis ticks are members of the arachnid family and are known as hard-bodied ticks. They have elongated mouthparts with rows of backward-facing teeth that they, given the opportunity, will sink into your skin. In addition to latching on with their teeth, they produce a cement-style compound to lock into place for blood feeding. These vampire-like creatures are prevalent on the east coast of Australia, particularly in the Sydney region, but they're spreading around the country. Encounters with these blood-sucking parasites are relatively common, and although harmless to many humans, they're not to be taken lightly, in case you're one of the unlucky ones who will succumb to their curse. The curse of the paralysis tick is far-reaching. Aside from suffering paralysis from the effects of a tick bite, the paralysis tick can also cause severe allergies to its victims, leading to anaphylactic shock. On top of this is the identification of mammalian meat allergies that are a direct result of a paralysis tick bite.
This very strange syndrome has just recently been diagnosed, where if you're bitten by a tick, you can then develop a life-threatening allergic response to eating mammalian meat, such as your beef or your lamb, or even eating meat products, such as gelatin. And this is becoming a very important syndrome, particularly in the more tick-prone areas of northern Sydney, such as Northern Beaches area, where mammalian meat allergy is actually more common than bee stings, it's more common than peanut allergies, and it's becoming one of the most common allergies beyond, obviously, hay fever.
In extreme cases, victims avoid eating meat altogether, although chicken and fish are still on the menu as they're not mammals. Choosing what to eat becomes paramount. The allergy can take several hours to kick in and could be months after the tick bite.
In regards to the mammalian meat allergies and the development of potential anaphylactic shock, more than 500 patients have been diagnosed with this quite bizarre condition from the Northern Beaches region of Sydney. And we see cases of people just going to have their barbecue, suddenly collapsing because they've had their sausage. They've developed this mammalian meat allergy, and it's something we need to be aware of.
In terms of lifestyle, the paralysis tick lives for about a year. The adult tick is the most active, and this is the most dangerous stage of all. However, both the larval and nymphal stage also acquire a blood mill over the autumn and winter months. Spring is the time when the adults are in full swing, but it is only the female that blood feeds on the host. The males fasten onto the females and feed upon them.
Once a tick is embedded, and a lot of people say that they insert their head, but they don't. What can happen is you can have localized swelling to give the appearance that the head's embedded, but it's only these small mouth parts that are embedded. It will attach and remain attached for some time, and it goes through a sort of delay period of feeding where it's very slow to feed, then suddenly goes through a rapid feeding stage after about 4 to 5 days.
If you're unlucky enough to have a paralysis tick burrow into your skin and start feeding off your blood, don't try and pull it out with tweezers or your fingers. That'll only aggravate the problem, as it is likely to blow more saliva into your vein as you squeeze its body. Using an ether spray is your best bet to kill it stone dead at the site.
Here we're going to demonstrate the proper way of killing a tick in place. It's important not to try to touch a tick or attempt to remove it. It can make the problem a lot worse. So here we've got actually a dead adult female paralysis tick on a kind volunteer, and so I have an ether-based spray which is mainly used for the treatment of warts. And so what we do is put the applicator over the tick, then do just a couple of quick sprays. This will actually freeze the tick in place. It will kill the tick immediately, prevent the tick injecting more of its dangerous saliva, and then eventually the tick will fall off naturally.
Allowing the tick to drop off naturally reduces the possibility of developing an allergic reaction. Reactions range from mild, with some redness and irritation at the bite site, to raised red, painful welts about the same length as your arm, all the way to making sure you have an EpiPen on standby.
From 1920 to 1940, there were actually 20 deaths from tick paralysis in humans. Most were in children, and often the ticks were in spots of the body that weren't obvious, such as the ear canal. Since 1940, we haven't seen a death, basically due to modern medicine, but also with the development of antivenin. So we haven't seen a death in humans, but in animals, there's something like 20,000 pets affected every year with tick paralysis. Many hundreds die, and so it's a very important condition.
For a tiny animal, the paralysis tick drums up a pretty big attitude in terms of health issues for humans and animals. If you're in a tick-prone area, always check for the presence of ticks on your skin and clothing, and consider repellents as a means of safety.
It's very important that once you've come out of a tick area, no matter what means you've undertaken to avoid ticks, once you've come out of a tick-prone area, it's important to take those clothes off, bag them up, and put them into a hot dryer for 20 minutes, because a tick can be on you for 2 to 3 hours afterwards before it actually attaches.
The best advice is to be aware. Ticks are common, widespread, and cause many problems. They have very few predators. They are more likely to be victims to high temperatures and low humidity.
I've had people ring me up, say that my child suffers anaphylactic reaction. What should I do? And unfortunately, I'd say, move, get out of that area, go to an area where there are not ticks. And it's a difficult advice, but if you've got these children who could actually die from the next tick bite, it seems the logical thing to do. Ticks cause problems. They cause problems in multitude ways. The whole community needs to be aware of them and the problems they cause.
Bushwalk at your own peril, unless you take precautions, which clearly the animals in our list haven't considered, as the paralysis tick nips in at number 2, knocking out all but the mosquito, who reigns at number 1. The reef shark tips the scale to 3rd as the domino effect continues with the lionfish into 4th, the southern cassowary kicking into 5th, and the olive python slumping to 6th. We've introduced a couple of big players into our list of 72. The paralysis tick and the mosquito are the only contenders from this program coming into the spotlight, both planning to alter the state of play in our current top 10. Still loosely staking its claim in 10th spot is the iconic kangaroo. It's had its moment of glory, but it isn't strong enough to hold its place, so it's hopping out. Equally ominous is the irukandji, floating tentatively at number 9, and also not looking good. It too is going to take its plunge from the platform. This leaves room to bring in our 2 contenders, but they're not taking the bottom spots. The paralysis tick has the potential to knock you for 6, so it's going to upset the field and go in at number 4, pushing the Johnston's crocodile, the cone snail, and the tiger snake down to 5, 6, and 7. Followed by the Sydney funnel-web spider scampering into 8, and the water buffalo to 9. There's still a gap at 10, and we know the mosquito will go in high. The guater and dugite are mighty dangerous and have been responsible for many deaths. The mosquito is also silent and deadly. You're not going to get much warning. But how does it shape up against the bull shark? It too will take victims by surprise. It's a tough call, and after weighing up all the factors, the mosquito is going to dominate the deck at number 1. The rest of the pack tumbles down a spot and is likely to fall further as each program we introduce another set of dangerous animals, all wanting to make their mark and infiltrate the top 10. With all of our Australian animals, there is a fear factor. But keep in mind, they're unlikely to harm you unless you're unlucky enough or foolish enough to get in their way. Be cautious, take note of the warnings, and show respect as we count down the list of 72 dangerous animals Australia.